Hello everybody. I decided to make a short follow-up video on the crossover eschatology video I did, referencing that Islam was created as a front by the fallen angels in order to have a criteria developed uh, for the Antichrist to be accepted as a Messiah. So, if you've seen that, you might be watching this because you saw that I am here to talk about a visual diagram of a timeline. So let's jump right in. Okay, this is sort of in the format that you might see Robert Breaker draw it out. So I started with the cross and the shedding of the blood on the far left, and that is when the age of grace begins. And I put in red, you are here. This is the present day point, and directly after that is going to be the rapture resurrection. And this is when the age of grace ends. So, this is what everyone in the Watchmen community is looking for. Well, what I have been discussing goes further than that. So we have not been talking about when the rapture really will be. Moving along, in the scenario that Islam has to do with the end of times, the day that the tribulation begins, there should already be a Muslim government that took control of the Middle East and Israel. If not, that should be in development. But as we know, there's supposed to be a 7 year covenant. So if a Muslim government takes over in the Middle East, they will likely start up the jizya tax. So that's what I think the 7 year covenant is going to be. That's why I put a little question mark. It's not confirmed. That's just my speculation. But we expect that the two witnesses will arrive around this time and they are going to preach for 1,260 days. And then we have the Mahdi will come on the scene, and this is supposed to be the prophet of the Antichrist, so the false prophet, obviously. And so he is going to declare that the Messiah is on the way very soon, and he is also going to be looking out for the Dajjal. At some point, the Dajjal does arrive, and it is thought that he'll probably come out of Isfahan, Iran, and he'll have Jewish followers at first, about 70,000. That is taught in Islam. I don't know that that's going to happen because, from what I can tell, there's not 70,000 Jews in Iran. So, um, there's much less than that. In fact, not very many. But other than that, he is supposed to claim divinity, and this makes me wonder if he's supposed to claim to be a divine Jesus Christ, so that when Isa eventually kills him, it will be like, oh, well, obviously Jesus is not divine because here's a non divine Jesus killing the divine Jesus, so maybe he never was divine. Um, but that's pure speculation, as I said. And so the Dajjal is going to perform many, many miracles, and he's going to have a large, diverse following. Okay, and then Isa would arrive. Now, if you are a little confused about Isa versus Jesus, Isa is not Jesus. In fact, Isa isn't even real. So you might have heard that is just Jesus directly translated to Arabic. It is, however, that's just punched into a computer to spit that out on Google Translate, right? So the name Isa was chosen by the Muslims to force that he is a prophet and not divine at all, that he is completely human. So Isa is not an acceptable term, an acceptable pronunciation for the true Jesus Christ. So that's why I separate Isa from Jesus Christ himself. So Isa is going to be played by probably a fallen angel. Maybe they'll pick a human or something. I'm not sure, but um, Isa does not exist. He is just a character to be played by someone acting as him. That being said, whoever that is would be descending to the White Marinette. This is on the west side of Damascus in Syria. And we already know that Jesus is supposed to descend onto the Mount of Olives. So if you meet someone claiming to be Jesus or Isa, it would and he's descending onto the White Marinette. That's the wrong one. So and he's not just going to float down either. He's going to be lowered by two angels, which is a little strange, but that is what they have been teaching in Islam. After Isa takes ground on Earth, he would travel down to a town called Lod, and this is in Israel. It's about 30 miles west of the Mount of Olives, and he is going to join the Mahdi, who is battling the Dajjal. This is going to be a war between the army of the Mahdi and the army of the Dajjal. Isa intervenes. He confronts the Dajjal, and he will stab them with a sword. And having the blood on the sword is what he will use to prove himself to those who uh, don't think that he is the true Messiah. So is somehow going to show the Dajjal's blood on his sword. But the Dajjal won't be truly destroyed until he destroys him with the breath of his mouth, just like Jesus is supposed to do to the Antichrist, who in this case would be Isa. Once the Dajjal is destroyed, Isa's next mission is to go to Jerusalem, and he is going to then purify the mosque. This is supposed to be the Dome of the Rock. Okay, this one might be a little bit long-winded. I'll do my best. So, halfway through the tribulation, after 1,260 days, Isa takes a throne after he travels to Jerusalem to the Dome of the Rock. He would declare that he is Jesus. This is important because Daniel 9:27, we're told in the book of Daniel that he is going to claim to be God. But how can he claim to be God if he's claiming that he is Jesus and not God? Well, Daniel was written before Jesus walked the earth. So the idea of the Messiah being divine was not completely understood yet. So, that being said, by taking the identity of Jesus, you are taking the claim that you are God, but then further severing God from Jesus. So it's a double whammy. Now, that would fulfill that. After that, he is going to abolish the jizya tax. This is breaking the covenant. I believe this is breaking the 7-year covenant. And it would be condemning non Muslim religions because the whole point of the jizya tax is to tolerate Christians and Jews and Buddhists and whoever else who is not Muslim, to allow them to practice their religion freely as long as they give offering to Allah financially to the Muslim government. So, after that, he would stop Islamic sacrifices. Okay? So, this is instead of the red heifers. Everyone thinks the red heifers are significant. In this scenario, it's not the red heifers. Muslims already perform sacrifices a couple times a year. All right. The two witnesses will die, resurrect, and ascend into heaven. When they are dead, the world, the Islamic world, would be celebrating a holiday while the witnesses are dead. I have not looked into what holidays might be related to this. Maybe some sort of Thanksgiving version in Islam or something. I'm not sure. Would be worth looking into. Might be able to pinpoint when the middle of a tribulation could be. Then global destruction begins. I'm pretty sure Revelation says that this is preceded by a loud trumpet blast, because Islam is also taught that there will be a loud trumpet blast that announces the destruction upon the world. Okay? But because Isa took the throne, 2/3 of the Jews will accept him, and they will be cut off from the promise. The remaining 1/3 of the Jews will flee into the wilderness for safety. This is in Revelation. They are to flee into the wilderness for a place that was prepared for them for safety. They will return when Jesus is able to clear out the danger and welcome them back. Next, Isa introduces the mark of the believers. Since the jizya tax is abolished, he is condemning the tolerance of Christians, Jews, Catholics, whatever else is out there. So, in order to enforce the ridding of these other religions, he needs to prevent them from participating in the economy. So, the mark of the believers is a physical, literal mark on the forehead. There's no chip, there's no nothing. This is passed out by an actual beast of a kind. It is believed in some perspectives that it might actually be a beast made up of different animal parts. Read Revelation, that is interesting. Now, uh, the Muslims are taught that if they were to allow, under their own power, if they were to help a non-believer complete a transaction and participate in the economy, that the believer will be condemned to hell as punishment. In this process, Isa would be taking full control of the world economy using the Muslims. As long as he can get the upper parts of the supply chain, then any Christians or Jews that own grocery stores will not last very long, because by the time they need to make a new supply order, they won't be allowed because they are not Muslim. So, that being said, I do think one scenario that would allow Easter to take control of the upper parts of the supply chain for the world economy would be if it comes true that there is a mountain of gold in the Euphrates River next to the city of Babylon. This would allow Babylon to be jump started and revived, because its prophecies of being destroyed have not been fulfilled. Babylon was simply abandoned, and it was just run down by lack of maintenance, because all the empires that took over did not want to pay for the upkeep of the glorious structures that they built. So, that being said, Babylon is still yet to be destroyed, which means that it should rise again as prophesied in Revelation. Islam also teaches the revival of Babylon, and in part it teaches that it may have to do with the mountain of gold that might be found in the Euphrates River. So, that being said, merchants are going to flock straight to Babylon to try to get a piece and sell them whatever they can to make this happen. So, being that Babylon is in Iraq in the Middle East, it would be very easy for the Muslims to take over the world economy by having that much wealth at their disposal. By this point, most of the world population will have died from the result of either being killed by the Muslims for not believing, or Muslim or not, being killed by the global destruction set by God Himself. And now we're at the marker that the tribulation is finally over. Immediately after those days, the true Jesus Christ will arrive, descending on the Mount of Olives with his army in white linen on horses, following him to destroy the Antichrist. And how does he do it? He destroys Isa with the breath of his mouth. And lastly, we will settle in New Jerusalem with Jesus Christ and begin the millennial reign. I hope you found this informative. I wanted to stress that basically, if Islam is the front for the Antichrist, that it would be used to create a great deception of the Antichrist fulfilling the prophecies that are actually meant for Jesus, and therefore causing the great deception of many people to believe in him because he fulfilled many of the prophecies meant for Jesus' killing of the Antichrist, which will still happen afterwards. But the Antichrist is playing it out, he's acting it out in theater. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I will look and try to answer them all if I can. Some of this stuff is up for speculation, but for the most part, when you line up Islam with the Bible's eschatology of the book of Revelation and Daniel, everything lines up this way. So take a screenshot, share it with someone from the Watchmen community who might be interested in this, and thank you for watching.